Hello and welcome to episode 62 of the Dash Force Free Amigos podcast. I'm Mark Mason and I'm joined by my two fellow amigos, Joel Valenzuela. How are you?
Hey, I'm doing excellent.
Good stuff. And my other amigo, Brian, aka Mastermind. How are you?
Doing good.
Fantastic. And today we have a very, very special guest. I'm very honored to have him here. Bob Carroll, who is the Dash Core Group CTO. How's it going, Bob?
It's going great. Thanks for having me on today. I appreciate it.
Yeah, we've heard so much about you. We had Ryan on the podcast a few weeks back, and he had some very kind words to share about you. And I've kind of noticed from talking to other people in the core team that since you've come in, there's a whole new bunch of energy that's there. So like, it sounds like you really come in and mix things up. But I'd like to take it back and start from the beginning, because this may be the first time that the community is actually meeting you. So could you just tell us a bit about yourself and about your history before you came to Dash?
Sure. That would be great. So I cut my teeth really in the relational database industry back in the, I hate to say it, but back in the 90s. And so open systems at the beginning of really the proliferation there, pre-web, pre-internet, and worked for a relational database vendor, Informix Software, and managed systems engineers throughout their organization. And that was kind of what my passion was developing business applications, bringing them to market, helping customers know how to leverage technology, and just loved kind of the deep roots of databases. And so distributed databases and data warehousing, all of that was, kind of right in our wheelhouse. And so kind of, fast forwarding to blockchain as a distributed database just on a peer-to-peer network is just so refreshing. It's just fun to see the evolution of how that has happened over the years. But after I did that in the relational database industry, I spent about 20 years in online education. So really helped some of the pioneering efforts of some big players there. I was with the University of Phoenix as we actually onboarded onto the internet and took that out and scaled that to we had about 300,000 students using the platform, which, concurrent users, it was a pretty high number, pretty high percentage of that, especially when everybody's assignments are due at the same time, and spent about 8 years as their CIO, and then and helped really develop the technology that really catapulted them, and then spent another 20 years in large organizations as well as small startups. So my last org before Dash and doing some things on my own was a Greenfield Startup. I was the only tech guy for about a year and a half, and it was pre-revenue, pre-customer, pre-product. We were actually defining the service offering, the product offering, and that was fantastic as well.
Sounds like you just described 90% of crypto.
Yeah, it's when you don't know where your customers are, it's pretty hair raising, and just trying to figure out how you're even going to get a product to market when you have no employees. And you have a little bit of investment capital, but not a ton. So anyway, it's been a wild ride. I can't figure out how I'm only 35 years old and I've been in the industry for 30 years. But you guys do the math somewhere, and you'll figure it out.
When did you first get into like crypto, Bitcoin, Dash?
Yeah, it's probably been about a year, and it's funny because the conversations just came out of every direction of my life. My personal family, we've got a few very crypto friendly sons, a couple of sons, and just every kind of place I was walking, I'd be with a software vendor, and they're telling me how they're accepting crypto. From some of the customers that they have and why they're into it, and friends in the big consulting firms and some of the efforts that they were doing around research, and another friend who left a very illustrious career at one of the juggernauts of technology to join crypto as a founder. And so it was interesting how all of these conversations were just coming together, which is kind of brought me into it, and that was over like the last year and a half. And so, with the opportunity at Dash, it was the right time and probably the culmination of all of that, and it's thrilling.
Yeah, because that's the most interesting question I think I could think of to ask you, and I'm curious to learn as well, because you're at the top of your game. And I'm just so curious about what attracted you to work for Dash, because a man with your experience has many, many options. So why Dash?
I appreciate the compliment. Don't know if it's founded, but thank you very much. I was flattered by that. Between the accent and the flattering words, I'm telling you, Mark, we got a long relationship ahead of us.
Yeah, good old naughty Mark working his charm.
Yeah, the American girls love the accent, so I can work that.
I think the crypto was intriguing, right? The blockchain was defining. And as you look at, you can say top of your game, and I could have said that at the same time of being in the last like large publicly traded company CIO position, and you're like, well, here I am. I have the big office and and a title, and I get to go on. People take me to dinners and things like that. And at that point in time, I felt like I needed to get into startup land, and I needed to get in touch with the technology again, and so. This is kind of my second iteration of what I would call startup after the big corporate career. And I viewed myself as too young to be kind of in those roles as I was in these large corporations. There's a lot of bureaucracy and process and things like that. And so I love the startup and I love the vibe. Fortunately, when I was in those large corporations, they were all high growth. And so high growth has just been part of my makeup along the way. So as I learned more about Dash and like I said, the blockchain technology and comparing that to some of my roots just heralded to home. And then as I met the folks in Dash, it was kind of the icing on the cake was meeting the team, meeting Andy with his vision, meeting Ryan and his passion of how he's trying to mature the organization, and I could go on about the others. It was not a short or small interview process to get hired on board, but that was really invigorating. And then I'll say the other thing about Dash of why Dash is governance. The governance process and how Dash Core Group is set up is just so in line with my values of how I believe things should operate. That was like the slam dunk. It was like, got it, because this is exactly what crypto needs, right? You need that voice without being completely, having this centralized authority, but you need a voice, you need a caretaker. And, that's what I've always felt in my roles of technology is I'm a caretaker and I'm a provider trying to provide good technology. So it was the culmination of those things, if that helps answer it. Hopefully you've seen the same things with Dash.
Yeah, absolutely. I find it really, I think you hit the nail on the head, because when you first referred to your job back in the 90s, where there's the whole internet craze, or I don't want to say the dot-com bubble, but like the internet changed the game. And I almost feel with blockchain, we're kind of at that paradigm shift again. Like the applications of that could literally change everything. So this leads me to the next question.
Can I add one more thing onto that, Mark?
Yeah, sure.
Just another thought there too, on the why Dash is you look at the crypto space right now, and whatever level of maturity the various coins are and networks are, most of it, obviously without the governance space. One of the things that we always studied in as I've been making technology decisions for a long time is who to bet on. Right? Like which technology vendor is going to end up being the winner? Not because I'm making a stock market play on, technology vendors, but because I'm going to make an investment, sign a contract. I'm going to put some tech in. I'm going to have my guys learn that tech. And I don't want to swap it out in 2 years, right? Because the company gets acquired or the technology fails or whatever. And so one of the models that I've always used in my management has been way back into the 90s, again, with Jeffrey Moore's book, Crossing the Chasm. and which talks about, the innovators in technology, the early adopters, and then you get into the majority, et cetera, and the laggards. And where do you adopt technology? And so this concept of the chasm is where these companies fall off, right? They just didn't quite get all the market share or adoption that they really needed to. And crypto as a space is kind of like right there at the chasm. And so many of these players are at that space. And we know through looking at technology history that there's going to be a lot of people that fall into that chasm, to use the metaphor that's in the book. And when I think about those strengths that I just mentioned before, Dash is perfectly positioned to cross the chasm, to be that one that goes into majority adoption. And as we talk further in the conversation today, I'm sure we'll talk about evolution and new products and how the network's going to improve. Those are all the things that are going to kind of spin us up as we cross the chasm into that. And so that's one of those things that you splash against it and you say, is this a good bet? Do I want to be involved in this? And who wouldn't want to be on this ride, right?
Mate, gold star, merit badge for Bob.
Yeah.
There's been a few comments actually in the live chat. So a couple of people picking up on what you said previously about Andy Freer. So those that don't know Andy Freer, he now has a kind of architect role within Dash. So people are saying, what does Bob mean when he says he agrees with Andy Freer's vision? So that's who Andy Freer is. But can you just elaborate on that vision? Are you just talking about the Dash Pay vision in general as a payment system, or just like the grand vision?
I'd say the grand vision and the strategy and the architecture to get to it. So for those who don't know, Andy is in the role of chief software architect for Dash, and he really has that responsibility and has been with the organization for quite some time to articulate what we need to do and how we need to go about it. And so I'm sure we'll get to it later, and so I'll kind of hold off on some of that tech discussion. But as you come into an organization, you say, are all of the people in place and the roles defined, and are good things coming out of those roles? Well, good things are coming out of those roles. But as I mentioned, both the CEO and the chief architect of we have a plan, and now we're executing on that.
Have you talked to Evan at all, or any communication?
I have not. No, and I'm about a month and a half into the organization now, and my goal is to move around and hit everybody. And so, as you know, we're highly decentralized and distributed as an organization. And so, Andy and I we've got a meetup coming face to face up here pretty soon, and really trying to make as many face-to-face meetups as possible as well, just to build relationships and get to know all these great players.
Yeah, I definitely attest to the power of the face-to-face type meeting stuff. Little known fact is the three amigos, the three of us had never actually met in person, all of us. For the first about year working together, none of us had met each other. And then it wasn't until about a month or so ago at Pork Fest up in here in New Hampshire that we flew out Mark out, and he got to kind of meet everyone. And definitely helps to have a little bit more of that in-person synergy. There have been a few in-person Masternode meetings where just all that stuff that you see coming on Dash Central, all the proposals, all the talk, all the comments, it's just so hard to get a grasp of. And then if you just sit down around with a few different people and just like have some coffee or have some whatever and just sit down there and talk business, you really get a lot of business done. So that kind of stuff definitely helps. And so I'm glad that you have made it a priority to run around and talk to everyone, which is also why I want to run around and talk to everyone too. Yeah.
This week, I've had shaken the hands of two people, and they said, "You're the first person I've met at Dash in person," right?
Wow.
And it's great. It's just we're so dependent on the human capacity, right? And what the human capital, what people bring, and you do your best job hiring people and bringing them on board and trying to train them, but sitting down face to face and doing some stuff on a whiteboard or just eating some tortilla chips and guacamole, you can get a lot done there.
Yeah, and before we started, you were saying that you were in Phoenix with Ryan and Glenn, and I believe Alex was there. And who's the other person?
We have an HR housed out of there as well. So Kelly, who's in charge of HR.
Yeah.
And so the core group has a home, right? And that's again one of the distinctions and benefits of the Dash core group.
So let's get into the job itself.
Sure.
Let's get down to the nitty gritty,
Yeah.
right? Or as Fernando would like to say, he likes it messy. So let's get to it. So what I want to know is, because you were like, well, as you said, you're a month and a half in, but you're still quite fresh to Dash. So what challenges have you faced coming in as the new CTO? Because from the outsider's perspective, we've seen like a team restructuring. Was that down to you yourself when you come in? Did you shake things up? Like, has it been a challenge or has it been a smooth ride?
Yeah, I'd say it's been pretty smooth so far. I don't see a lot of any great challenges as I've had a chance to move around the organization and get to know people and what their roles are. And so, we really haven't had any restructuring. We do depend a lot on contract labor in this organization, and so we've had a couple contracts expire. And as we look at those and as those roll out, I think part of my job is to say, what roles do we need, right? And so I've inherited an organization that has an org chart, so to speak, associated with it, and we have to look at what's right. And so one of the things that, kind of going back to some experience, is I walked into an organization once and I had 61 people. And I remember, because you put the org chart together and you say, how many do you have? And over the course of 8 years, it grew to about 600. Wow. And I had, and it was great. I loved it. I loved the growth and seeing that and kind of finessing in the roles at the right time. What was interesting was I had an experience, a job prior to that, where a company was also going through dramatic growth. And I remember visiting corporate headquarters once and walking down all these offices, and it said director, director, director. And I was like, director of what? We're the guys who are selling this software. We're the guys that are making this happen out in the field. And what are all these directors, What is a director? And it made me realize that there's roles are right for organizations at certain times. And you may be a little too late to the game, or you may be a little premature to put those roles in place. And so I think as I continue to look at the organization, I'll keep looking at those roles saying, is that right for us right now? We have a team that's in total about 60 people, right? So it's about the size of an IT shop that I've managed in the past. And so I think we need to recognize who we are now, dream really big as far as who we're going to be, but make pragmatic decisions about staffing and where we use this treasury, right? We're the stewards of the funds, and we have to make good use of that. And so I'll continue to probably look at positions and say, is that right for Dash right now, and those types of things. But I don't expect any. I think that the term used was restructuring. One thing we don't have is we don't have a management structure, and so I literally have 26 direct reports today, and so that's a lot to take on if I'm going to mentor individuals, provide career paths, provide training opportunities. We're doing some of that. The organization at large helps me, but that's probably something that we could look to as some management in the future.
Excellent. So, big question now. Probably one of the biggest questions that everyone's dying for us to ask. Yeah. How close are we to seeing the new Dash roadmap?
The new Dash roadmap. Let me just use the analogy of a roadmap. If I looked at an Arizona roadmap from 1950, it would look pretty close to the Arizona roadmap right now. I'll tell you, I-10 cuts right through the state. It comes up through El Paso and goes over to California. I'm being a little facetious there, but the roadmap is pretty much the same. The roadmap is, where are we going? And I think the big question out there is, when are we going to get there? Which, if you're on a road trip, right, and you have kids, that is the burning question, I think, is, are we there yet? And I think that's a fair question to ask. Let me provide a little background on that. And again, I need to be a bit of a historian of the Dash organization in order to know where we're going to go in the future and what it's going to look like. In terms of evolution, there was a roadmap that was published, I think mid 2017, so it's been out for some time, that set some expectations as far as delivery dates. I feel like if I take the delivery dates off that and I look at the roadmap of scope, of architecture, of what products would be delivered, that's where I say the roadmap is going to be pretty much the same. I don't see any drastic changes off of that. I think the question's about the timing. And probably the definition of evolution. And so if you give me a few minutes, I'll kind of take you back through that journey and where my thoughts are right now. So when I look at the kind of the beginning releases of version 12, which we just released 12.3 earlier this month, right after the Superblock, is 12.1 was released in February of 2017. And that, we had some good features in that. New governance system was put in with Sentinel. And our next release wasn't for 9 more months. That was 12.2. And that's where we got to the 2 meg block sizes. And so we started addressing some scaling issues. And that was really, what was had been really developed in DIP 1. So we go 9 months from 12.1 to 12.2, and now we just released 12.3 8 months later in July. And that starts to set us up for great things of how we need to develop and how we need to deploy. We get DevNets out in 12.3. So now we've got DIPs 2, 3, and 4 we're trying to get out. Those DIPs were published in April of this year. Those DIPs were published 3 months ago. So I think it would be fair to say, without being overly critical of the organization and the history, is that we threw dates out without knowing what our design was. If we had dates out in public a year ago, and just 3 months ago we had designs out and published in the DIPs. So what I try to look at is, are we doing the right things? And we're absolutely doing the right things by publishing the DIPs. We're absolutely doing the right things on sharing that design with each other. We had a great session in Thailand this month where we brought the leads together and they were able to talk about the strategy and how each of their respective roles was going to fit together. So the answer to when is on the roadmap and on dates is soon. We have a Q2 call coming up. I believe on the 8th or 9th of August, and we'll see a roadmap at that point in time, and we'll have dates associated with it. What I need to make sure is that we know what the scope is, and that we know what we're doing, which teams are doing, what types of things, and that we're carving out what the MVP of the products really should be. If I could take a little bit more on evolution, though, I feel like 12.4, which is our next release, is part of the evolution roadmap. So this is the ability to have, as many of us know on this, the deterministic masternode list. We're going to support long-living quorums. Joel, I appreciate the dance.
Yes, I'm very excited about 12.4. Obviously, everyone's excited about 13, but
yeah,
I'm very excited about 12.4 because I've been a huge privacy advocate for a long time. That was what really got me into cryptocurrency and Dash in particular. And I'm one of those few people that uses my Dash wallet to use private send from mobile devices to buy my coffee in the morning. So I'm very excited to being able to do that as trustlessly as possible, as our good friend Totoblog managed to elucidate in his post. So I'm very, very excited.
And what's interesting, Joel, is that I met with one of our mobile developers this week, and he brought you up as a use case, right? As the
guy who keeps on trying to break every single app out there and always complains about things not working.
He didn't say it that eloquently, but no, it was how do we make sure that Joel gets what he needs? That's the sense of it, right? Is here you can't look at the person that's making a transaction a month. You have to look at the person that is making 3 or 4 transactions a day, right? Or 3 within an hour, as you were talking about, last week, is booking your vacation, right? You're just boom, 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 making these transactions. And so anyway, you are
private send transactions in a single day that were like legit purchase transactions.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, and that's our goal, right? That's the goal of Dash, is to have people living their lives as you are. So 12.4, you know, we're looking at that as far as a release as part of evolution, right? It's a build up to be able to support on-chain data and making sure that it's secure, and the SPV wallets and things like that. And so we will have that release out probably within 3 months since our previous release. So you look back at our history and say, okay, well, 9 months to 12.2 and 8 months to 12.3. And now all of a sudden we start to go 3 months. 3 months maybe partly because of the scope of what's in 12.4. But part of it's going to be an emphasis that I'll put on is how do we get more frequent deliverables out? I think we can set a cadence for ourselves as an organization and time box things as opposed to just scope box things and say, well, hey, we got to get this scope out, and so it's going to take forever. And so when we look at 13.0, it won't be a 9-month or an 8-month release cycle after 12.4. We'll talk more about it on the quarterly call, but part of what Dash will be doing is delivering more frequently to make sure that we're seeing visible progress.
So in a nutshell, for those watching, August we'll see an updated roadmap, not necessarily dates, but milestones, right?
Sure.
And that will coincide with around the time of the summary call. Is that correct?
Yeah. Yes, with the summary call.
Now, I think some people listening to that, with your comment about 12.4, may have clenched up a bit, because you said 12.4 might come in the next 3 months or so, which means there's not that much time left in the year for evolution.
Oh yeah, you're doing the backwards math, aren't you?
Yeah. So like I'm thinking here that everyone is screaming in their mind right now is, will we see Dash evolution in 2018?
That is a question that I'll do my best to answer for the community. We need to know that we understand the exact scope of what's 13.0. I'll take the word evolution out of it, right? Because evolution is just part of the architecture and the platform that we're developing towards. So 12.4 is part of the evolution release. 13.0 is the first release where we'll have the other distributed components, the distributed data storage with Dash Drive, the distributed API. And so there's a lot that's going into that buildup of the 13.0 release. You'll hear me talk about it more as the 13.0 release as opposed to evolution, because evolution is actually part of the process and the platform as opposed to the one thing. So I'll try to split that out for you guys, not for marketing speak, but for clarity, right? To make sure that we're talking about the right things, and hopefully we'll establish that trust with each other, and you'll understand what I'm doing and why I'm talking about it that way.
Will the dApps be part of that, the 13.0?
Yeah, so good question, and I think that's part of our what we need to deliver. We need to deliver the explanation of the dApps, right? So you say, are part of the dApps going to be part of 13.0? So the support and the architecture for the dApp architecture is going to be in 13.0. That's what the Dash schema, Dash Drive, and the DAPI provide. Now we've also committed to the fact that we're going to come out with a reference for that at our own first DApp to kind of show and highlight the capabilities of it, the power of it, and we've talked about Dash Pay Wallet being that first DApp that will deliver, that will be a Dash branded DApp. We're also talking to other software companies that are interested in that architecture of how they could plug into the Dash network and how they could leverage that architecture. We've got the lead position, so I expect us to be the first DApp out there, and that would be with the Dash Pay Wallet. The highlights of that we've talked about is we'll be able to have usernames on the blockchain, and that will be stored there and represented. And then also the ability to kind of track data state. And so as data changes states and transitions, and state transitions as we're calling them, that all of the infrastructure behind that. And that's really what the DIPs, the special transactions DIP, DIP2, highlights is how we can support that. So all of that will be in 13.0, those capabilities. We'll also give you we'll give you a delivery date on the Dash Pay wallet and the scope of that. That's a huge discussion too. What I want to say about the Dash Pay wallet, and I think sometimes there's confusion about, is Dash Pay wallet evolution? I've heard that. And I want to clearly state, no, Dash Pay wallet is not evolution. They're not synonymous. They're not one and the same. Dash Pay wallet is a reference wallet. It's using the DApp architecture, and it will require and need the 13.0 protocol and core node to be running. But it is something that we're going to put out there. And so as we've talked about it as evolution, sometimes it's like, well, evolution is a wallet. Evolution is not a wallet. Evolution is the new branding or the platform architecture that's out there. So with Dash Pay wallet, one of the other things that comes up is what's the scope of that, and who's that for? So I'm an advocate of Dash in the community, and I have other wallets, right, that I'm using. And matter of fact, we just released this month a beta version of the Copay wallet, Dash branded Dash Pay Copay wallet, and we did that to support multi-sig, which now sits side by side with our native wallets. Now we're announcing another wallet, which is Dash Pay wallet. We say, hey, we're going to have this out there because we want to leverage and show you the strengths and power of evolution. The reason we're doing that is the business goal of making crypto more accessible. For those of us who are Dash users today, it is accessible, right? We have access to it. We successfully use it. And so the first version of Dash Pay wallet really isn't geared at the Dash enthusiast. It's geared at the person who's never used Dash before, that wants easy sign up and onboarding, that wants familiar usernames as opposed to private keys and long addresses in there. And so we will then build on that platform and build on the feature set to continue to evolve it to then make it more accessible for our enthusiasts as well. So I think what we owe to the market is still some definition around Dash Pay wallet, and look for that in the Q2 update also.
Yeah, one of the things that was in there was being able to send to the email addresses and stuff like that. I guess, and that's not going to be. And then there was a savings account. So I'm guessing that's not going to be in the MVP.
We'll get you what's going to be the features in MVP. When we talk about email addresses, we're really talking about identities in the wallet, right? And so the identities being usernames, email addresses, cell phone numbers, they're all attributes of potential identities. And so we owe you a feature list on what specifically is going to be in there. The concept of sending something to a non-crypto address then is replaced with, well, what are you going to send it to? Is it a username? Is it an email address? Is it a 10-digit phone number? Those types of things. Whatever we decide those are going to be on the blockchain.
In terms of managing expectations,
yeah,
would it be fair to say that your job, your role, is to make sure deliverables are met to those milestones, essentially cracking the whip to make sure everyone stays in line and delivers? So when it comes to that first iteration of 13, I won't say Dash Pay for reasons you just mentioned, but 13, in terms of managing expectations, when you came in and you've been thoroughly going through the roadmap, did you say, okay, guys, we need to be realistic. We need to start stripping these things out if we're going to deliver on time. Let's just focus on the bare essentials and just do this in a modular process. But let's just focus on let's prioritize on this so we can deliver.
That's a great question. So let me answer with a couple things and give you some insight into the organization. So we have developers who have all sorts of different backgrounds, right? And so one of the efforts that's been underway this year is moving towards an Agile development methodology. And so if you're in the software field, Agile is a methodology to kind of use common terminology, but how do you manage the work? How do you get deliverables out of there? And it's really geared at allowing faster deliverables and more visibility into the work that needs to be done. So we're in the middle of an Agile implementation across our teams, and so across the engineering teams. And so that is absolutely the right thing to do. When I heard that was underway, obviously it would be nice if Agile had been in place for a couple of years, but knowing that was underway was huge. I would say, cracking the whip is only if it needs to be cracked, and I wouldn't say that there's that, but being responsible for the delivery is absolutely part of it, Mark. And so that's my job, right? The buck kind of stops here as far as making sure that deliverables are out there. What has transpired in the conversations, though, is encouraging us to explore, is that MVP? And so not stripping things out, as you kind of mentioned, but more just saying, all right, here's the things that are on the list. Are those MVP? And and I don't know that we've had a lot of that discussion in the past, because as I've heard it come up, we have then appropriately prioritized that work. And oftentimes, imagine you're just sitting around your house, you got things to fix and things to clean, and somebody's coming over for dinner. It's like, what do I work on first? And you see everything, and you're just, oh, I'm going to work on the thing that's closest to me, or I'm going to work on the thing that's going to take the least amount of time. There's so many different methodologies that you could apply. And that's kind of, without Agile being infused in the organization, that had been the approach, is we're all working on good things, all working on things that we needed to be, but were we working on the things in the priority order of delivery? And so now we're having those discussions and appropriately either bringing things forward. What I've seen more of, though, is us pulling things back, saying, well, actually, that has nothing to do with 13.0. And what you also haven't heard us do yet, and this will be a big goal for me in the coming quarter, is define 13.1. How could we have lived out here for so long and all we talk about is 13.0 or evolution or whatever we want to call it? It's like, well, obviously there's got to be a strategy after that, right? And so what is after the first version of DAPI and the first version of Dash Drive? And so I think that affords us, and then you go back and look at the dip history and say, okay, well, when are we publishing the next dips, and what are those? And so part of that is all our process that we should be following. And we do kind of follow it, but it's been a little haphazard because we're all really busy. And so I'm going to try to provide some structure and help us reflect on what the processes are that we have been following, but probably just be a little more rigid in making sure that we can keep following them. Because usually when you follow a good process, you feel good afterwards because you have a little less confusion and greater clarity. So those are some of the things that, as I describe my role, yeah, I'm responsible for delivery, and we've got the right people, we've got the right vision. People talk about people, process, and technology. Process is probably the one thing that we can expand upon and will benefit us as an organization.
So I'm guessing the 13.1 is going to be part of the roadmap, or
it will be. Well, that wouldn't be there in our call, which is going to be in 2 weeks. That's going to be something that I'll be working on this quarter to deliver for the next one. Is now let's start looking in the future. I think we've got the work well underway right now. As I said, those dips were published in April. We're doing the design, we're doing the development on it right now. I think 12.4 and 13.0 are well understood, but I want to start taking those opportunities with architects and leaders to start saying, well, what's after that? Give some greater visibility there. What I probably won't do is I probably won't commit to specific dates or months that might be a year out. I think usually a good roadmap has a lot of precision close up, and the further you go out, it has, stop talking about months, and then you start talking about quarters, and then you start talking about halves as things get further out. But we want people to see what's going to be next, because that will also help as we start working with software development partners, so they know what's out there as well, right? This isn't just for the consumer and the merchant.
Yeah, I think it'll also help with developers who there may be a feature that's not in there that they may want to start working on with adapt, for the community wants this, and, let core do their own thing.
Great point, Brian. And I have, one of the things I haven't jumped into yet is really what's out there on the proposal network, is to see what people are doing. And I think we have a great opportunity to continue to define what Dash core group should be doing and what we should allow the community to do at large, right? And how do we find that fine balance? And I'd love your input as we try to define that along the way. Is Let the community do that. I mean, that's part of the beauty of open source and why we're doing this. We don't have to build it all, right? We don't have to be the ones, but we should lead. We should model good behavior. We should put reference libraries out, those types of things. But so how far do we take it? And I don't know if you guys have thoughts on that of other projects.
I do have a few thoughts. Just one thing in a general philosophical sense, in a free market type environment, there is no such thing as quite an absolute, because everything has an equal and opposite reaction if it has the freedom to therefore do so. And every crisis can produce an opportunity can produce a crisis, etc. So other projects like, say, Bitcoin has had a ton of development, obviously because of first mover advantage, but also because there hasn't been one core group of people that are tasked and paid with doing everything. There has been a core team that's sort of been developing the main code, but then everyone else kind of jumped in. And because Dash is superior to this model by actually having money to fund an actual development team, I've noticed a lot of people, especially in the past, have gotten, I mean, using gross oversimplification, gotten a little lazy in trying to develop. Core is going to do that. And then there hasn't been enough outside development from what I've seen. And I think I've seen that change a little bit these days with, for example, my Dash wallet, I think is a fantastic project. And they've really done a lot by building out the tipping platform, another competing wallet, a whole bunch of extra stuff. And I definitely see one thing I've sort of advocated for a while has been a development wish list type thing of like, these are the things that would be great if the Dash ecosystem had, and then the core team can just say, yep, we're working on these 3 items, the rest you guys can have at it. And then someone can say, hey, I'm going to do one of those things, and then they can put in a proposal or crowdfund or a Dash Boost proposal or whatever and start doing that. But the thing is, I'm not a developer. I don't know bleep about what needs to be done other than, hey, this is we need a good point of sale. Now we have a couple. We need a good, wallet that works. Now we have a few.
We need a good hackathon. That's what we need.
Yeah. So some people are actually talking about that. I think Kodak's was talking about that during the chat about a hackathon in Wyoming, which would be one of the very few reasons to actually go to Wyoming. But just kidding. Just kidding. It looks like a beautiful state. It just, there's not very much civilization. But yeah, that would be interesting to see. What are your thoughts on leadership in that area versus not even having to make a mention of it? Like, how much of that, obviously, so what are your thoughts on how much of greater stuff that needs to be built in Dash should core do? How much of it should core not do, but maybe talk about, why don't we do this? And how much should core just say, I have no idea, you guys figure out what you want?
Right. That's a great conversation to have. We need to have that conversation, and I need to be engaged in that. I don't know what the answer is at this point in time, and I don't know if the question is how much, as much as it is which things. And so as we start, part of what we're doing right now is also looking at all of the things, let's call them projects, or maybe even products that we're working on. Should we be working on all of these? And I'll tell you that we're not working on many, and we're working on the right ones right now. But as you could imagine, in an open source community and people that have come out of this, there's a lot of freedom and flexibility where people say, hey, you know what, I kind of want to work on this, or I've started spending some time on this idea, right? And I think those are the types of conversations where we want to put some framework around it to say that, if you have an idea, let's talk about whether that makes sense for us to do, try to get the community involved in doing that. And let's stick with, because we do have limited resources, and we do want to make great use of the funding that we do have, and continue to establish that trust so we continue to get the funding there, is we need to make sure that we're working on the right things. And so I think the what is going to be the question. And obviously core, right, is there. But you could ask the question about wallets, because that is something that's easy to touch. It's mobile. There's other people that are out there. You can fork one. You could, create one from scratch. Those types of things. Is that the thing we should work on? What other types of insight mechanisms? What other types of products for masternode owners as a set of stakeholders should we be working on? Is that what we should be working on, or is that what we let the community work on? And so we need to have dialogue to talk about that. The more I can share with roadmaps and the things that we're working on and give some greater visibility to that, I think we'll afford that. But we can talk about it internally. I'd love to get the community's input on that. And then I think we also should be looking at the proposals themselves and saying, why is that coming up as a proposal? Is that something that we should have worked on? Or, those types of things. So it's a great conversation. The comment about hackathons is a whole nother one. And I've seen so many good examples in the technology industry that I could pull on without name dropping, but where I've just seen good behavior. We're not doing anything. We're doing one thing new. What we're doing with evolution is revolutionary, and that's awesome.
By the way, I'd love to do one of the most important things that has happened out of this entire podcast is just to hear you say that and see the smile on your face, because everyone has a job. Everyone's just like, I got to do this, I got to do that. But it's just like when you start talking about the work you do, and you're just like, listen, guys, this stuff, this is like, this keeps me up at night. Like just knowing that passion shows that we're on the right track.
Good. So good. I appreciate that. What we're doing that's not new is we're an organization creating software, right? And there's good ways to go about that. There's how open you are with a community, how you support hackathons, how you support your community, how you close off. We've set good behavior in not being closed off, I think, in the past. Can we improve on communication? Absolutely. That will be one thing that we'll work on is how we do that. But you also have to have, somebody who's got the role of authority, to help make decisions and bring those into the organization, and who wants to do this. And so Ryan's made it clear that that's my job. And so again, thank you for helping me do that. But when you said hackathons, I mean, I can think of a great company that I worked with. I bought their product. They were a commercial product as well as open source. They always pushed it back in the community, but they also sold it. And their user conference, supported hackathons because of the open source side of the project. And I know that's one of those things that we still need to work on is how often the community gets together, how we can facilitate that, how we can fund it, and what's the right timing. But the next time we do get together, Wyoming or wherever else, we should be doing these types of things. So we'll look to you guys to help us with that. Yeah,
because one of my biggest fears, well, I found it really refreshing when you said that Core is in contact with a few software companies talking about the DAPI decentralized apps and API and all sorts.
So my instant funny question there is, are you going to try to match IOTA in claimed partnerships by the end of the month?
We'll leave that as your funny. So thank you.
Yeah. My concern is, and I feel like one of our weak areas right now, is that a large dependency on evolution itself being successful as a platform is actually on third-party external people building applications and tools on top. I feel at the moment that no one is actually out there talking to developers, whether it be like magazines, events, meetups. And because once we launch, my fear is that if no one knows about it, that's the thing. But I do understand that everyone is like knuckling down, got their heads down, working hard. But at the same time, I fear that if we launch, no one knows about it. And the only way that people can know to build upon it is to actually get out in that scene and communicate that message. Have you had that discussion?
By the way, I'd like to contribute to that with, for example, I mentioned the documentation portal, a developer documentation portal that explains everything. Kind of no one still knows about it, really. And I do have to tell people that it exists sometimes. He says there's no developer docs anywhere for Dash. And I have heard a few repeated comments from Dash fans elsewhere in the cryptoverse that some of the Dash developers are some of the most difficult to get in touch with as far as integrations, as far as integrating to new wallets. And for example, some wallets, I'm friends with the people that make them, and they say, we'd love to integrate Instance, and we just don't know technically how to do it. And we don't know anyone who would answer us on that. So anyway, that's just my contribution from just ear to the ground,
Yeah, and it's important for us to hear that. So I appreciate you sharing that, Mark. We're talking to organizations and software companies, and so I've participated in some of those, and they're early stage conversations, but it's about the architecture. I think what Joel brings up about documentation is one really critical part of it. Another one is what I would consider kind of technical product marketing. And so not marketing from, the standpoint of making the Dash name usable, but kind of that product marketing geared at the developers, to saying this is how it is extensible. This is what the how to do it. Here's an example. And so, we need to do more on that front. And so hearing you guys articulate it is helpful, because I know we've got others on the Dash team that are listening in here today, and it'll allow us to talk about that and make sure that we're putting our best foot forward there. We do have an integrations team that focuses on working with our third parties that want to integrate. It's been in the more the traditional sense, right, with the network as it exists today. And so that team is ready and will be ready to do 13.0 integrations and the discussions around that. But you kind of have to bring all of those pieces together, have almost start to build the pipeline of those.
Yeah, I have a question about the integrations thing, because it seems like, just from watching how integrations have played out and watching how the what's going on at Dash things have handled the budget and et cetera, it seems like there's a major focus on integrations, in having some kind of a funding to break out the integration, with either paying for development costs of a company or incentivizing a discount or something. And so obviously these are two different things, right? Where you're going to jump out with bit refill, convince them to get on board, and then give them a 10% discount for a while just to get everyone on board. But what I'm most personally concerned, I wouldn't consider is the wrong word, but interested in, is the integrations team that I can just throw them for anyone who just wants to quickly integrate Dash and doesn't need any big incentivization, doesn't need to make a big to-do out of that. And so who would be the person, and obviously anyone else listening, who says like, oh yeah, I know this guy, I know the CEO of this, or I know the guy who developed that. They'd love to have Dash on there. How do we reach out and get integration support for Dash for just like basic stuff?
Yeah. And so, I mean, obviously, I think Bradley, and so I'd point you to Bradley, and we can have that discussion after the call. Bradley and I can do that. But I mean, he's the one who's going to put you directly in contact with the team. We do staff a bit more for the more complex integrations as opposed to the easy ones. Again, if it's easy, should we have to staff for it, or should there just be good documentation to guide somebody, kind of DIY format? It's good conversations. I mean, you guys are just you're just spot on the things that you're talking about today. So I appreciate it. But Bradley is the one who would, we should take that feedback to.
I feel though, based on your work history experience, you were saying earlier that you have history in online education, and surely if you want to bring developers to the party to build upon it, they need those resources to do that. So I'm thinking, just on your experience alone, that you could bring loads of tricks from the trade and ideas that are fresh to the table to actually onboard these developers. Because we've had people like Alex Werner on the show before, and he's saying, yeah, there are distinct advantages. Look, there are other decentralized application blockchains out there at the moment, but the advantage with Dash is it enables developers from all kinds of backgrounds. They don't have to be blockchain developers to build decentralized apps on the thing. So that's our advantage, and I feel like we should be evangelizing and getting that message out. So even like new developers in the scene can go somewhere, have a play, but maybe it is just the case that it's too premature to do that right now because they don't have anything to play with just yet. But still, that conversation should be had, and we can put line up all those ducks in a row so we're ready to go. Would that be fair?
It would be fair, and I think premature. I think we're at the right spot right now. I don't think it's premature. This is the time that we should be doing it. There's enough documentation that we should be putting those out. I know we've had some blog articles on the forum written by the Fez, who has responsibility for documentation. He just does a fantastic job with that, and so kind of making people aware of it, that it's out there. Having it be purpose-built, so we know what purpose this documentation is there. I think back to you either have a reference manual or a user guide. Well, I think we do a lot of reference manuals. And so how do we get that user guide that says, okay, here's what I'm trying to do as a user. I'm trying to build a DApp. Here's what I'm trying to do as a user. I'm trying to, build a wallet or whatever it is. And if we could do that, that might be a tweak of the documentation of its purpose. I know a lot of the documentation that we're doing right now is for internal purposes, right? We're trying to educate and inform across teams as well. So great thoughts.
Yeah, because I would love to see the branding of not just Dash Pay. When I said, you've made me rethink everything now in my terminology, but I don't want people to think of Dash as just user-friendly, but developer-friendly as well.
Absolutely.
And I feel like that's the missing piece of the puzzle here.
Yeah, and that's how you grow a platform too, right? Is you open your platform and you invite everybody in, and it has to be inviting.
Yeah, I mean, that's one thing I noticed with when Bitcoin first took off. It wasn't just, the Bitcoin core team made a product that works, and then people just made a few wallets and started using it. There are just so many things. There's Satoshi Dice, there's all these faucets, there's all these other things, there's colored coin projects. And then one of the reasons why in the entire alt space, as it's known, Ethereum has hung around for so long in such a dominant position, just won't go away, because now you have like a first functioning smart contract. So I mean, depending on what you practically, well, that's a different matter, but functioning smart contract platform that anyone can build dApps on, then everyone just says like Ethereum, jumps in there, starts making all kinds of things, all kinds of crypto kitties, all kinds of crypto dragons. You have to kill your kitty in order to get the dragon, all kind of clogging up the blockchain. Just like Ethereum's consistent double or more Bitcoin's on-chain transactions is not just a bot that's like running things. I mean, maybe it is depending on your definition, but my point being is it's people using the ever-loving crap out of this platform. Now, for market productive reasons, that might be a different discussion. But the fact is, because people were able to build on it and they got excited, it's probably the most used, or one of the very top most used cryptocurrencies out there.
And what I think the story that we need to tell is the cost of building on the platform. Right, the ease of it, and as well as the cost of it. And when they see and can compare the cost of storing data on the blockchain with Dash and how extensible that will be compared to the cost that they would be doing with Ethereum, we'll have converts. We need to be able to tell that story.
Yes, I definitely think that, and Dash Force has delved into the PR game as well as just news and other kind of stuff. And that's definitely something that like our eyes are on in the future, on like, for example, the whole Venezuelan explosion in merchant adoption that's been, fantastic. And we definitely feel comfortable making the claim that more businesses take Dash in Venezuela than take every other cryptocurrency combined. And so, and no one's been able to call us on that. So it stands, and it would be fun to be able to introduce the Evolution platform, the dApp platform, and just be able to say, make this platform allows for, I don't know, we have to be careful with the language about smart contracts and stuff, and like, what does that even mean, right? But to have some kind of a sizzling headline that just says that allows Ethereum type stuff for way more scale at 1/1,000,000th of the cost, or whatever it ends up being, and just put that out there, and then everyone just starts waking up. And then that's the hype cycle that I know that Ryan always tries to avoid a little bit. But at that point, there's going to be a lot of people getting involved, and everyone wants to run to the new platform. I mean, it's been, what has it been? Ethereum, then it's been Neo for a little while, and then it's been EOS and Cardano, and I don't know, IOTA. I don't think anyone investing in IOTA pretty much knows what it does, but I'm pretty sure somewhere in the back of their head, it's just like the Ethereum killer, even though it's not labeled as such, is still there. So that's going to be interesting to watch.
It will be.
Yep.
I have a question. So this is kind of a bit of a selfish question as well, because
typical.
Yeah, this is very typical of me. So as you mentioned, we've been doing a bit of PR recently, but also with thinking about rebranding and all sorts as well. Now, earlier on, you spoke about Andy Freer's grand vision. Okay. So Dash Pay launches. we have a big media marketing campaign. So for mass adoption and people that aren't familiar with the crypto world now, they're going to be familiar with Dash Pay, like PayPal, right? So they can be like, hey, are you on Dash Pay? Oh,
Right.
oh my God, you want to set up Dash Pay? So what I'm alluding to here is there going to be a confluence in rebranding, because is Dash always going to be Dash, or is there going to be switch over to Dash Pay? Because many people have noticed that all the Dash official social media is already Dash Pay. And although we're quite
let me get my tinfoil hat real quick. Keep going, keep going.
The cryptoverse is quite small as it is right now, but if we really are going for that mass adoption and going to be that cryptocurrency that your grandmother can use, just like the internet, they don't have to know how things work behind the scenes. All they need to know and care about that it works and it's intuitive. Right. So I'm not sure you're the right person to ask, but as we were talking about the grand vision and we're thinking about rebranding, I'm being selfish. Can you see a rebranding of Dash to Dash Pay? We know the website is going under a redesign right now.
Right.
Is that going to be Dash Pay? Is the ticker on coinmarketcap.com going to change from Dash to Dash Pay? What's going on?
Well, you guys are really whipping this up into a big thing, aren't you?
Yeah.
I hate to be the guy to let you down on this. And one is I'm not the right guy. Yeah. But Dash is the cryptocurrency. Dash is the network. Dash Pay is the wallet. So, people may say, have you downloaded Dash Pay or using that? But Dash will continue to be the cryptocurrency. I would not expect to see a rebranding around that. We are doing, rebranding as far as a refresh on digital assets and logo and things like that. But kind of, again, that confusion that I was trying to talk to before on evolution and Dash Pay and Dash Pay and Dash, and Dash Pay is our wallet, and that'll be the next version of a wallet that we get out there. But Dash will continue to be. And
you're primarily focused on Dash Pay being the mobile wallet. I think we need to make that absolutely clear.
Yeah, we should make that completely clear. There is no plans in the MVP to have it be a web wallet. It is all mobile wallet.
Interesting.
That will come further down the line, though.
We'll see in the roadmap.
Okay.
we have some real strategy. I'll bring you guys into the discussion, right? And the thought process is, all right, so we're announcing Dash Pay Wallet because it is an opportunity to show the power of a DApp. You may know we actually have another wallet or two or three. And so what is the strategy with Dash Pay Wallet? The real strategy was we wanted to show the power of evolution, 13.0 and the DApp. And so I think we have some more strategy work to do on wallets in general. Should we be in it? Should we not be in it? If we're in it, what do we fork them? Do we write our own, create our own, those types of things? And I'll hope to bring good business decisions for us, that we're, again, using our resources wisely. If you're in any industry and you said, I have 4 of the same thing, everybody should be asking why. Why do you need 4 of the same thing? And, how do you build then into your roadmap the opportunities to sunset products and say that they have a lifespan and they're going to serve their purpose for a while? And it's better to do that strategically than it is to force the market, let the market force you into it and say, gosh, everybody hates it. So we finally pulled the plug, except for the one guy who was really mad about it, And so if we can build a strategy that says, these are the reasons why we do it or don't do it. These are the reasons we're going to put our resources in one place or 2 places. That's what you should be looking for. You should be looking for a business strategy from us, followed up with a product strategy that supports it. And that's what I'll deliver.
So I have a question that I'm sure unfortunately, it's a nuanced and complicated question,
sure.
But it's been sort of brought up a whole lot about Dash's usability as a currency on the denomination issue. I see Ryan Gull in the live chat. He's been all over this thing for a long time. I'm sure, obviously, in the short term, possibly the midterm, no one's going to care about how much Dash you're sending. It's always going to be $30 worth of Dash or whatever. But in the long term, obviously, we're hoping people will start paying in Dash, that Dash will become a currency that will be kind of denominated. Right. Now, here's the question, right? Obviously, especially if the price starts going up again, we're not going to see anyone paying in Dash because 0.00347 Dash it's not very
Right.
it's not very practical.
User friendly.
So of course, with Bitcoin, for example, we got bits and things like that, and Dash we have. I know my Dash wallet already defaults to M Dash, etc. So first off, is there any kind of a strategy to specifically address this kind of a thing? Like, is there any thought process on that? And then second question would be, obviously we have this 1,000th denominations already. Have there been any thoughts on naming something a little bit less awkward than like M Dash and then things like that?
Well, I like how you posed your thought of what it should be as in the form of a question, as if I could answer that for you. So I'll take what you said.
I'm a little weasel with the words,
as a request to us. And it gets back into that conversation of how do requests come into Dash to take a look at things and build them into the products. I have not been involved in any of the denomination discussions to this point. So I'm unfortunately unable to answer that for you today. But by bringing it up again on the podcast today, it kind of immortalizes this that we now need to talk about it and make sure that there's a strategy out there to answer that. Couldn't agree with you more though on the problems that you face with it today, and knowing that our goal is accessibility and making it easier to access and transact with. I think you're right on there with your recommendations.
As CTO, what are the biggest challenges for Dash moving forward?
I think really it's probably the amount of opportunities that we have, and whenever you look at an organization, you say we can only do so much, and so I look at it as supply and demand. We've got a ton of demand. We have limited supply, and I could, I've tried this over my career to just ask for all the money in the world. Nobody's given it to me, or to get funding for all of the demand, and so it's a matter of knowing what our core values are, knowing what are important from a business strategy purpose, and then applying that and making sure that we're working on the right things. As technologists, we owe it to stakeholders to be working on the right things there. So I'd say it's the abundance of opportunities that we have out there. I think, as I said at the beginning, the obvious benefits of Dash and what attracted me to the organization are there, and those aren't challenges. I mean, you'll always have some issues and some tweaks, and we could do better at taking notes in meetings, or starting meetings on time or something like that. But it's really just the bounteous amount of opportunities. And I'll tell you what, and maybe this is something to wrap on, is just kind of as I think about our technology strategy. We've talked about business strategies and things like that, but we need to ensure that we're focused on access in the things that we're developing. And so there's going to be back-end components of that. There's going to be very obvious front-end components as we build clients and things that people can use, is to make Dash more accessible. And so accessibility is one of the legs of our technology strategy. I'd say the next one is scalability. We know the growth is going to come. We are very confident in that, and we're seeing it in micro markets right now, right? And you take Zimbabwe, you take Venezuela, you take some of those things. We'll continue to focus on the right markets, and so we have to be prepared for scale. And so, the 2 meg block size and the research we're doing with Arizona State University that was just published as far as going to 4 or 10. We're engaged in some other research that's going to push some limits on scalability and allow us to really truly scale. And the good work that our core dev team is just doing today to support scale will continue to be important to us. And then lastly is, how I'd probably define the DAPI and the Dash Drive work, and that architecture of evolution is really extensibility. It is the ability to open up and extend our product, that it can be used in other situations and use cases beyond somebody with a wallet transacting between a consumer or merchant to merchant type of scenario. Is how do you open that up and build on the blockchain, build on a cryptocurrency blockchain to open up the back end of applications. And again, back to my very beginnings, we were a relational database vendor. I remember when I got the call that said, hey, you got to go out and meet with this airline because they built a reservation systems on your database. And I said, how do I have a customer that I've never heard of that is an airline that has built a solution on top of our database?
Yeah,
And
I'm sure that's going to be, that's insane with crypto, because anyone can spin up and run a node. There might be 1,000 forks of Dash that no one ever thought to tell them they were forking the code, etc. Like, for example, if you look at Dash Wallet in the Android store, you'll find 2 of them. You'll find the hash engineering one, and you'll find a direct copy of the hash engineering one, the older version, except with wall of coins in there. So this is an interesting time we live in.
Yeah, it really is. And so, extensibility is the other, the other leg of the technology strategy. And so I think as we focus on those 3 things, we're going to be building the right products. We're going to be realizing that it's for a broad audience and that it's going to grow and has to scale. And that's the strategy that we have to build upon. What products we deliver in that, and whether we call them one thing or another, we'll work on that to make it more acceptable by the community. But I think we've got people working on the right things right now. I think we have a good strategy, a good architecture, and I'm excited to see it delivered. So,
I do have one question that came to mind as I was talking about scalability. I was like, oh, right. So do you remember that big, completely impromptu scalability test that happened like a couple weeks ago? From like 50% of it was just me typing in create TX spike over and over and over again.
Yes, yeah. I think you guys talked about it last week on the podcast.
That's going to be interesting. I hear rumors of, or somewhere around the 12.4 launch time, there's going to be a push for around 5 million transactions in a 24-hour period.
Wow.
Now, Dr. Darren Tapp, who I happen to be personal friends with, he said
that's right.
Yes, he said for running his numbers, he did not think that would be technically possible with a 2 megabyte block size. So, therefore, the question is, first off, is 12.4 going to increase, have a block size increase? And more generally, what is your plan for increasing network capacity? Is it going to be like kind of once a year? Is it going to be once an upgrade after a certain point? Is it going to be, well, we'll wait until we see massive on-chain increase before that? What's that?
Yeah, so I don't think we'll wait for demand, right? Because that's where you get caught in a tough situation.
Bitcoin, sorry. Oh,
yeah. And so that's why we have the proactive research agenda that we do. Darren's great. So if you're probably as caught up as I am on that. And so as far as tying it together with any releases, and specifically to 12.4, we haven't announced that yet. It's going to be when it's ready, and that we can bake that into the releases. And so I wouldn't say at this point in time I have a strategy on how we're going to bring scaling into the discussion, because we typically have been looking at feature set usability features, but it's a focus. That's why we have that ASU partnership on that. So I can't tell you when the next thing's going to be in there, and part of it is we'll make sure that we're doing it. It isn't a usability feature. It's something akin to network security and infrastructure scalability, and it may even be something that we hold a little bit closer to our vest. You don't want to create a challenge to a community that says, break my stuff. And so we may err on the side of being a little more conservative as far as discussing the topic too. We need to talk about that as a team. I'm glad you brought it up, but like you said, you don't want to become a target.
Yeah, we'll probably need to wrap it up. We got one more question here from the chat from Hans. It says, can you ask Bob if the technical team will make sure they look at options like the extended public key and wallets for point of sale integration purposes?
Yeah, we will do that. So we're looking at that as we're defining the that type of stuff right now. So the fact that he's bringing it up just is like one more tick or notch in the column that says it's important. But yes, we're looking at that.
Cool.
Excellent.
Okay, well,
Let's wrap it up.
Yeah, we'll finish stuff up. One last question. Just for a bit of fun.
It's the last question.
For
right?
a bit of fun and a bit of optimism as well, because we've been asking lots of questions. So it hasn't been doom and gloom, but like we've been asking our wish list, our request
for
list.
sure, which is great. That's why we're doing this.
I've personally noticed that since you've come on board, there's a lot more energy within the Dash Core team. We had Ryan on the other week, but I've spoken to him in private as well, and I've never seen Ryan more relaxed and more confident. But in a general sense, because he's always
he finally got
working
over 6 hours of sleep.
Exactly. So this is one of the questions I wanted to ask you, is like, just for the community, because they don't get to see the hours that Ryan puts in. So like, what's it like to work with Ryan? Because they don't get to see that. Is there a good energy feeling in the group? Are people optimistic for the future?
Oh, for sure. Ryan has a ton of energy. He's a great chief technology officer too. So I'm kind of stepping into his shoes. I mean, he can go so deep with the tech, which I really appreciate. As far as the energy, I don't really have anything to compare it against, but he is very high energy. Hopefully I'm bringing some of that to the organization as well. And I don't know that it's nothing consciously, right? You just you want good people to work together, have fun at work, get the job done, celebrate the wins, and move on to the next one, right? And that's the goal. And we all have to work. We do it because we're providers. And at the end of the day, if you're not having fun at it, then you should find something else. And so this is the type of work I love doing. We're working on technology that's going to make a difference in the world. We have a race on, in a sense, because it's relevant right now. It's the topic, it's the buzzword, and the race is on to just make that adoption, cross the chasm, as I said before. But I love working with Ryan. We had a great call this morning, and he's insightful. He said, I think I need you more than you need me. And I said, no, I need you. I need your advice and input. Hopefully I'm giving him some time back out of his day and allowing him to focus on some of the other things. But he's a fantastic leader for our organization. We're all lucky in the Dash community to have him.
Wow, he had very nice words to say about you as well. He speaks very highly of you. So
that's good.
It's good that you have that camaraderie.
I drafted those for him.
Right, Joel, would you like to take us out?
Yes, absolutely. Everyone, say big thanks to Bob for being on the call, taking time out of his day to just chat with us weirdos. Now, obviously, this podcast is going to be on iTunes, Stitcher, all kinds of stuff. We always put out on Saturday the post that has all those links to the audio only version. So if you want to listen to this on audio only, it's all there. Like, comment, subscribe, all the usual stuff. Also, as usual, on dashchat.org, we do an after party where just kind of like this, but up to 10 people at a time, limited space available, that just talk about whatever, uncensored, unrecorded, etc., for sometimes hours on end, or sometimes if no one's there, everyone just kind of goes home. It's up to you. It's a complete crazy anarchy. Go to dashchat.org and you get to the Dash Nation Discord, and then you just start asking around. Just start saying, oh, where's this after party I hear? Can someone put me in? And something will probably happen. So that's a little bit of fun if you want to continue things afterwards. I think that a lot of great business deals have gotten done in there. A lot of great friendships have gotten created. Just a lot of great venting and swearing at each other and stuff like that has happened there too.
Yep.
It's been a good spot for the community to get together and 10 at a time. Have your microphone on, and there you go.
Perfect. Well, thank you, Bob, for coming on. Hopefully, will you come back on again in the future? Hopefully, we haven't scared you off.
Whenever you'll have me, but I'd love it, and I really appreciate the open invitation, guys. It's been a great dialogue.
Fantastic. Well, that was episode 62 of the Dash Force Free Amigos podcast. Have a fantastic weekend. Stay positive, stay humble, and stay dashy.
Woo!
Stay dashy.